My mother listed herself as owner of my business on legal documents, said I gave you life so I own your success, then took out loans against it. Now she's terrified because the bank found the forgery. I'm letting them prosecute her. I started my graphic design company 4 years ago. Worked my ass off, built it from nothing while living in a cramped studio apartment and eating ramen most nights. My mother helped with some paperwork early on because I was drowning in client work and didn't understand half the legal stuff. She kept saying, let me handle the boring parts, you focus on the creative work. Last month I got a call from a bank I'd never heard of. They wanted to discuss my business loan. I told them they had the wrong person because I never took out any loans. The guy on the phone got quiet and said, according to our records, you and your co-owner took out a commercial loan for $87,000 last year. I don't have a co-owner. I drove straight to the bank. Sat down with this loan officer who pulled up the paperwork and there it was. Articles of incorporation listing my mother as 50% owner of my company. Her name on the LLC documents. Her signature and mine on 3 separate loan applications spanning the last 18 months. Except I never signed anything. I never even saw these documents. I called her right there from the bank lobby. Asked her what the hell was going on. She laughed. Actually laughed and said, oh honey, I was going to tell you eventually. I needed some money for the house renovations and my credit's not great, so I just used the business. It's fine, I'm making the payments. I said you forged my signature. You committed fraud. She got defensive immediately. Started saying I gave you life, I raised you, I helped you start that business. Technically everything you have is because of me, so really I do own part of your success. You're being ungrateful. I told her I was going to the police. She said you wouldn't do that to your own mother. I hung up and walked back into the bank. Told the loan officer I wanted to file a fraud report. He brought in his manager. They pulled all the documents and compared the signatures. Mine looked nothing like the ones on their paperwork. The manager's face went white. He said this is forgery. We need to contact our legal department and the authorities. Turns out my mother had been making minimum payments on the loans for a while, but recently stopped. That's why they called. The bank was starting to panic because they'd loaned out almost $200,000 total across 3 different loans, all based on fraudulent documents. The police got involved. A detective came to my apartment and took my statement. Collected samples of my real signature. Asked if I wanted to press charges. I said yes. My mother has been blowing up my phone ever since. Crying, begging, saying I'm going to ruin her life. My aunt called me yesterday screaming that I'm a horrible daughter, that my mother only did it because she was desperate, that family doesn't send family to prison. I asked my aunt if she knew about the forgery. She went quiet. Then she said your mother mentioned she'd added herself to your business paperwork but she made it sound like you knew. My mother told people I knew. She's been acting like we're business partners. Meanwhile she's been siphoning money out of loans taken in my company's name while I had no idea my business was drowning in debt. The bank's legal team contacted me last week. They said they're pursuing criminal charges for fraud and forgery. They also said I'm not liable for the loans since I can prove I never authorized them, but it's going to be a nightmare untangling everything. My business credit is destroyed. I might have to dissolve the LLC and start over completely. My mother left me a voicemail 2 days ago. She was sobbing, saying the prosecutor told her she's looking at up to 5 years in prison. She said please, you can stop this, just tell them it was a misunderstanding, tell them you gave me permission. I deleted it. My whole family is calling me cruel. My grandmother said she's your mother, how can you do this to her? My brother said I'm overreacting, that I should just work out a payment plan with her and drop the charges. But she forged my signature. Multiple times. On legal documents. She took out $200,000 in loans using my business and then acted like she had every right to do it because she gave me life. She literally said she owns my success. And now that she's facing actual consequences, suddenly I'm the bad guy for not protecting her. The detective said the case is solid. The bank has everything documented. My mother's going to be prosecuted whether I cooperate or not at this point, but my family acts like I could snap my fingers and make it all go away. Part of me feels sick about it. She's still my mother. But another part of me is furious because she showed zero remorse until the police got involved, and even now she's not actually sorry, she just doesn't want to go to prison. My best friend said I did the right thing. My therapist said I'm setting boundaries. But my family says I'm destroying my mother's life over money and that I should have just handled it privately. So now I'm sitting here while my mother faces fraud charges and everyone I'm related to thinks I'm a monster. Was I wrong to let the legal process play out instead of trying to protect her? The bank called me again yesterday. The loans my mother took out weren't just for house renovations like she claimed. Turns out she used most of the money to fund my brother's investment opportunity that went nowhere and to pay off her boyfriend's gambling debts. I didn't even know she had a boyfriend. The detective handling the case told me this 2 weeks ago when I came in to give another statement. He spread out bank records across his desk and walked me through where the money went. $87,000 to some cryptocurrency scheme my brother got involved in. $63,000 paid directly to a casino to clear debts for a guy named Rick who I'd never heard of until that moment. The rest went to random expenses, shopping, a vacation to Hawaii. My brother called me after the detective contacted him. He didn't apologize. He said Mom told me you were okay with the loan, that you two were partners now. How was I supposed to know she was lying? I asked him if he really thought I'd agree to take out a massive loan so he could throw money at crypto. He got quiet, then said you've always been successful, I figured you could afford it. That's when I realized my whole family sees me as an ATM. My mother literally forged documents because she felt entitled to my money. My brother took $87,000 without questioning it because he assumed I was rich enough not to care. My aunt is mad at me not because what my mother did was wrong, but because I'm not protecting her from consequences. The prosecutor assigned to the case contacted me last week. She's a woman in her 50s who looked exhausted when we met. She told me my mother's lawyer is trying to negotiate a plea deal. They want to argue that it was a misunderstanding, that my mother had implied permission, that family businesses are complicated. I showed the prosecutor my business formation documents. The original ones, filed 4 years ago, with only my name on them. I showed her my signature on my driver's license, on old contracts, on tax returns. Then I showed her the forged signatures on the loan applications. They don't even look close. The prosecutor said your mother's going to claim you gave verbal permission and she just signed for convenience. I said then why did she forge my signature? Why not have me actually sign? She smiled. Exactly. That's what I'm going to ask her lawyer. My mother showed up at my apartment 3 days ago. I have a doorbell camera and I watched her stand there for 20 minutes, pressing the buzzer over and over. She was crying, makeup running down her face, holding a manila folder. I didn't open the door. Eventually she left the folder wedged in my doorframe and drove away. Inside were printed emails between her and Rick, her boyfriend. Messages about needing money, about the casino threatening him, about how she could get funds through my business. There was also a handwritten letter from her saying she was sorry, that she made terrible choices, that she'd pay me back somehow. What she didn't include was any actual plan to fix what she destroyed. No acknowledgement that she committed multiple felonies. No recognition that my business is buried under debt I never agreed to. Just vague promises and tears. The bank's legal department told me yesterday that they're writing off the loans as fraud losses. My business credit is still wrecked, but at least I'm not personally liable. They also said they're cooperating fully with the prosecution because this isn't the first time someone's committed loan fraud, and they want to make an example of the case. My grandmother called me this morning. She's 81 and usually stays out of drama, but even she got involved this time. She said your mother made mistakes but prison will kill her. She's not strong enough for that. I asked grandmother if she knew about the forgery beforehand. Long silence. Then she admitted my mother mentioned adding herself to my business to help out, but grandmother assumed it was legitimate. When I told her about the loans, about the gambling debts, about the crypto scheme, she got very quiet. Finally she said I didn't know it was that bad. I said no one bothered to ask me. Everyone just assumed I was on board with this. She didn't have an answer for that. My business is basically dead. I had to tell my clients what happened. Most were understanding, but 3 of them dropped me immediately because they can't work with a company that's involved in a fraud investigation. My income dropped by 40% in 2 weeks. I'm eating ramen again like when I started, except this time it's not because I'm building something, it's because my mother destroyed what I built. My brother sent me a text yesterday. Just one line, Mom's lawyer says you could make this go away if you wanted to. I blocked his number. The preliminary hearing is in 3 weeks. The prosecutor said my mother will probably take a plea deal before then, but if she doesn't, we're going to trial. She told me to prepare for my mother's lawyer to paint me as vindictive, ungrateful, a daughter who's trying to hurt her own mother over money. I told the prosecutor my mother stole $200,000 using forged documents and felt justified doing it because she gave me life. She said I know. I've seen worse cases, but not many. Your mother genuinely seems to believe she had a right to do this. That's what keeps me up at night. Not the legal consequences she's facing. Not my family turning on me. But the fact that my mother really, truly thinks she did nothing wrong. She thinks I owe her unlimited access to everything I have because she's my mother. And when I refused to be stolen from, when I reported a crime, she became the victim in her own mind. Rick, the boyfriend, disappeared. The detective said he probably skipped town when he found out about the investigation. My mother keeps claiming she was protecting him, that he was in real danger from the casino, that she had no choice. The prosecutor laughed when I told her that. She said desperate people make desperate choices, but forgery is still forgery. I keep thinking about that voicemail my mother left, sobbing about 5 years in prison. Part of me feels guilty. She is my mother. I have memories of her reading to me as a kid, teaching me to ride a bike, helping me move into my first apartment. But then I remember her laughing when I first called her about the loans. Her actual laugh, like it was funny that I was upset. Her saying she owned my success because she gave birth to me. My therapist said something last session that stuck with me. She said you're not sending your mother to prison. Your mother sent herself to prison the moment she forged your signature. You're just refusing to lie about it. My aunt called this morning, crying, begging me to talk to the prosecutor. I told her I already gave my statement and the case is out of my hands. She screamed that I could fix this if I cared, that I could tell them I gave permission, that I could save my mother. I hung up on her. The truth is, even if I wanted to drop charges, I can't. The bank is the victim too. The state is prosecuting. My mother committed fraud against a financial institution and they have all the evidence they need without me. But my family doesn't understand that. They think I'm choosing to destroy her when really I'm just refusing to commit perjury to save her from consequences she earned. 3 weeks until the hearing. 3 weeks of my phone blowing up with family members calling me heartless. 3 weeks of wondering if I'll ever have a normal relationship with any of them again. But I'm not backing down. She forged my signature, stole almost $200,000, destroyed my business, and then told everyone I gave permission. So now I'm watching her face actual consequences while my entire family treats me like the villain. Am I really supposed to feel guilty about that? My mother took the plea deal. 5 years probation, full restitution of $200,000, and a felony fraud conviction on her record. No prison time if she complies with everything. My family acts like I should be grateful she avoided prison. My aunt sent me a text saying, "See, it all worked out, now you can forgive her and move on." Like my mother didn't just agree in court that she committed fraud. Like she didn't stand there and admit to forging my signature on legal documents. Like I'm supposed to forget the whole thing because she got probation instead of prison. The restitution part is a joke. My mother works part-time at a grocery store and lives off Social Security. She's 64 years old. She'll never pay back $200,000. The prosecutor told me restitution orders in fraud cases rarely get paid in full, especially when the defendant has no assets. It's basically symbolic. But here's what nobody expected. The bank isn't letting this go. They filed a civil lawsuit against my mother 2 days after she took the plea deal. Not just for the loan amount, but for damages, legal fees, and something called institutional fraud penalties. The total they're seeking is over $340,000. Their lawyer called me last week to let me know I might be called as a witness. My mother left me a voicemail screaming about it. She said, "You got what you wanted, I have a criminal record now, why are you still letting them come after me? I'm not letting them do anything." The bank made their own decision. But she can't seem to understand that this isn't about me punishing her. This is about her facing consequences from everyone she committed fraud against. Rick resurfaced. The boyfriend who my mother paid off his gambling debts with my stolen money. He showed up at my apartment last week with my mother. I watched them on my doorbell camera. He's maybe 58, balding, wearing a shirt with stains on it. He kept saying we need to talk about this situation while my mother stood behind him crying. I called the police. Told them 2 people were harassing me at my front door and refusing to leave. They showed up in maybe 10 minutes. I watched the whole thing from my phone. The officers asked Rick and my mother to leave. Rick started arguing, saying he had a right to talk to me. One of the officers told him he was trespassing and needed to leave immediately or he'd be arrested. My mother grabbed Rick's arm and pulled him away. But before they left, she looked directly at the camera and said, "You've destroyed my life over money. I hope you're happy." The officers asked if I wanted to file a restraining order. I said yes. My brother found out about the restraining order because my mother called him sobbing. He sent me a long email about how I've gone too far, how our mother is having a breakdown, how I'm being vindictive and cruel. He said she's been having panic attacks, can't sleep, can't eat. He said she's suicidal. I forwarded the email to my therapist. She read it during our session and said, "Your brother is trying to manipulate you. He's making you responsible for your mother's mental health when your mother created the situation herself." But that word, suicidal, it got stuck in my head. I spent 3 days feeling sick about it. Finally, I called my grandmother and asked if my mother was actually in danger of hurting herself. Long pause. Then grandmother said she's very upset, but she's always been dramatic when she doesn't get her way. That told me everything. My business is slowly recovering. I filed for a new LLC under a different name. Started reaching out to old clients, explaining the situation carefully. Most people were understanding. One of my biggest clients actually said if someone stole from me like that, I don't care if it was my own mother, they'd face charges too. It was the first time someone in my life just agreed with me without qualifications. I picked up 2 new contracts last week. Small ones, but it's something. I'm rebuilding from almost nothing, but at least this time nobody can forge documents and destroy it again. The preliminary hearing for the restraining order is next week. My mother's lawyer sent a letter saying she wants to make amends and that a restraining order is unnecessary. The letter included another handwritten note from my mother. This one said she understands why I'm hurt but that I'm her daughter and we need to find a way to heal together. Nowhere in the letter did she actually apologize for the fraud. Nowhere did she acknowledge that what she did was wrong. It was all about her feelings, her pain, her need for reconciliation. Like I'm supposed to comfort her while she faces consequences for stealing from me. My aunt called yesterday with a new angle. She said my mother's health is declining from the stress and that if something happens to her, it'll be my fault. She said you'll have to live with that for the rest of your life. I told my aunt that my mother made choices and now she's dealing with the results of those choices. That I didn't force her to forge documents or take out fraudulent loans. My aunt said I was being cold and calculating, that I've changed, that the old me would never treat family this way. Maybe she's right. The old me probably would have tried to fix this quietly. Would have taken on the debt myself to protect my mother from consequences. Would have believed her when she said she deserved access to my success because she gave birth to me. But the old me also would have lost everything and spent years paying off loans I never took out while my mother faced no consequences at all. My brother sent another email. This one included photos of my mother looking exhausted and crying. The caption said, "This is what you've done." Like I held a gun to her head and forced her to commit fraud. Like I made her steal $200,000. Like any of this was my choice instead of hers. I blocked his email address. The bank's civil case is moving forward. Their lawyer told me it'll probably take a year or more to get through court, but they're confident they'll win a judgment. Whether they ever collect on it is another question, but at least it'll be on record. At least there will be a legal document somewhere saying what she did and what she owes. My grandmother called this morning. She's the only family member I still talk to, and even that's complicated. She said my mother asked her to reach out to me, to see if there's any way to resolve this as a family. I asked grandmother what that meant. She said my mother wants me to write a letter to the bank asking them to drop the civil suit. In exchange, my mother promises to make payments directly to me for the restitution, and we can start rebuilding our relationship. I told grandmother that my mother still doesn't get it. The bank isn't suing her because of me. They're suing her because she committed fraud against them. I can't make them drop it even if I wanted to. And I definitely don't want to. Grandmother got quiet. Then she said, I raised your mother better than this. I don't know what happened to her. That almost broke me. Hearing my grandmother, who's been making excuses for my mother this whole time, finally admit that my mother's behavior is wrong. But it doesn't change anything. It doesn't undo the fraud or the destroyed business or the shattered family relationships. The restraining order hearing is in 5 days. My mother will be there. Her lawyer will probably argue that she's not a threat, that she just wants to talk to her daughter, that keeping her away is cruel. My lawyer says the showing up at my door after I refused contact, plus bringing Rick with her, plus the threatening language, all of that should be enough to get the order approved. Part of me still feels guilty. She is my mother. But then I remember her laughing on the phone when I first found out about the loans. I remember her saying she owned my success. I remember her showing up at my door with her criminal boyfriend and acting like I was the problem. So now I'm getting a restraining order against my own mother while she faces a massive civil lawsuit and my entire family acts like I'm the villain. People keep asking me if this is really worth destroying my family over. Like my mother didn't destroy it first when she decided my hard work belonged to her. I got served with papers yesterday. My mother is suing me for defamation and emotional distress. Her lawyer claims I made false statements to the bank and police that damaged her reputation and caused her psychological harm. They're asking for $500,000 in damages. The paperwork lists things I said in my statements, things the detective told me she admitted to, things that are literally documented in her plea agreement. But apparently telling the truth about her fraud is defamation now. My lawyer called me an hour after I got served. She sounded tired. She said this is a slap suit, it has no merit, but we still have to respond to it. She explained that my mother's lawyer is probably hoping I'll drop the restraining order or agree not to testify in the bank civil case in exchange for her dropping this lawsuit. I asked what happens if I don't negotiate. She said then we go to court and we win, but it'll cost you legal fees and months of your time. My mother filed this 3 days after the restraining order got approved. The judge granted it for 1 year after hearing about her showing up at my apartment with Rick, about the voicemail where she blamed me for destroying her life, about the pattern of harassment. My mother sat in that courtroom and cried while her lawyer argued she was just a mother trying to reconcile with her daughter. The judge wasn't buying it. He said the defendant committed fraud against the petitioner, took a plea deal admitting to that fraud, and has continued to contact the petitioner despite being asked to stop. The restraining order is granted. My mother stood up and screamed, "You're taking her side because she's younger and successful and I'm just an old woman." The judge told her to sit down or he'd hold her in contempt. Rick had to physically pull her back into her seat. Now she's suing me. And my family is eating it up. My aunt sent me a text with a link to the lawsuit. She said, "See, your mother is finally standing up for herself. You've been slandering her this whole time and now you'll pay for it." My brother called it karma. Said I destroyed our mother's reputation with lies and now the truth is coming out in court. Except nothing I said was a lie. My mother forged my signature. She took out fraudulent loans. She used the money for her boyfriend's gambling debts and my brother's failed investment. She admitted to all of this in her plea agreement. But somehow my family has rewritten history where I'm the one who made everything up to hurt her. My grandmother is the only one who seems conflicted. She called me last night and said, "I don't understand why your mother is doing this." She took the plea deal. Everyone knows what she did. Then she said, "But maybe if you just talk to her, she'd drop the lawsuit." I told grandmother I'm not negotiating with someone who's actively suing me for telling the truth. She sighed and said this family is falling apart. The bank's lawyer contacted me about the defamation suit. He wanted to make sure I wasn't going to settle or back down from testifying. I told him I'm not changing anything. He said good, because if you admit you lied about the fraud, it undermines our entire civil case. That's when it clicked. My mother's lawyer isn't just trying to intimidate me into dropping the restraining order. They're trying to create reasonable doubt for the bank's lawsuit. If they can get me to say I exaggerated or misunderstood what happened, even slightly, they can use it to argue the bank's case is based on false information. My lawyer confirmed it. She said your mother is backed into a corner financially. The bank is coming after her for over $300,000. She's on probation with a restitution order she can't pay. This lawsuit is a desperate attempt to create leverage. But it's working. Sort of. Not legally, but emotionally. I'm now dealing with 2 lawyers, multiple court dates, and a family that's fully convinced I'm a vindictive liar who destroyed my innocent mother's life. The stress is affecting my work again. I had to push back deadlines on both my new contracts because I can't focus. Rick left my mother. Found out through my grandmother. Apparently he told her the legal problems were too much drama and he didn't sign up for this. My mother is devastated. She's been calling everyone in the family crying about how he abandoned her in her time of need. My aunt actually said to me, "See what you've done? Your mother has lost everything because of you. Her reputation, her boyfriend, her relationship with her daughter. Are you happy now?" I didn't respond. What's the point? They've decided I'm the villain and nothing will change that. The deposition for the defamation case is scheduled for next month. My lawyer says they'll ask me to walk through every statement I made to police and the bank, trying to find inconsistencies or exaggerations. She said, "Just tell the truth. You have documentation for everything." They have nothing. But I keep thinking about sitting in a room with my mother's lawyer, getting grilled about why I reported my own mother, Why I didn't just handle it privately, why I let the criminal case move forward. Having to defend myself for refusing to cover up fraud. My brother sent me a Facebook message yesterday. He's blocked on everything else, so he found me there. It said mom's lawyer says they have evidence you inflated the loan amounts and lied about not knowing about the business partnership. You're going to lose everything in court and everyone will know you're a fraud. I showed it to my lawyer. She said that's witness intimidation. Screenshot it and save it. Then she asked if I wanted to report it. I said no. I'm so tired of escalating things. But she said I should at least document it in case it becomes a pattern. The bank's civil case keeps moving forward. They're not settling. Their lawyer told me they've dealt with fraud cases before and they want this on record. He said your mother thought she could steal from a bank and face no consequences. We're proving her wrong. Part of me wishes they would settle. Wishes this whole thing would just end. But another part of me knows that if the bank settles, my mother will see it as validation. She'll tell everyone she was right, that the bank had no case, that I made everything up. And my family will believe her. My grandmother called me this morning. She said my mother is having serious health problems from the stress. High blood pressure, trouble sleeping, anxiety attacks. She said I know your mother made mistakes but this is killing her. Can't you find some way to end this? I asked grandmother if my mother ever apologized. Real silence. Then she said she says she's sorry you're upset. That's not an apology. That's never been an apology. My mother is sorry I'm upset, sorry there are consequences, sorry she got caught. But she's not sorry for what she did. She still thinks she had a right to take that money. The defamation lawsuit discovery deadline is in 3 weeks. My lawyer says we'll be requesting all of my mother's financial records, all communications with Rick, all documentation of the loans and where the money went. She said we're going to bury them in evidence that everything you said was true. But it doesn't feel like winning. It feels like drowning. Every time I think this is finally over, something new happens. Another lawsuit, another family member calling me horrible, another court date to prepare for. My therapist asked me last week if I regret reporting the fraud. I said no. Then I said I don't know. Then I started crying and couldn't stop. She said you did the right thing in an impossible situation. The fact that it's hard doesn't mean it was wrong. I'm holding on to that. Because right now I'm being sued by my own mother for defamation, ostracized by my entire family, and facing months more of legal battles. And the worst part is I know this isn't over. The defamation case, the bank civil case, the probation violations my mother keeps racking up, all of it is going to drag on. But I can't back down now. If I admit I lied or exaggerated anything, I lose everything. My credibility, the restraining order, my ability to rebuild my business. And my mother learned she can commit fraud and sue her way out of consequences. So I guess I'm seeing this through to the end, whatever that looks like. Even if it means losing my entire family in the process. The defamation lawsuit got thrown out last week. Judge didn't even let it go to trial. He looked at my mother's lawyer and said the defendant admitted to fraud in a criminal plea agreement. The plaintiff accurately reported that fraud. There is no defamation here. Case dismissed. My mother started crying in the courtroom. Her lawyer tried to argue they should at least get discovery, that there were nuances to explore. The judge cut him off and said, "Counselor, your client pled guilty. Nothing the plaintiff said was false. We're done here." I sat there feeling nothing. No relief, no satisfaction. Just empty. The bank won their civil case 2 days ago. Default judgment because my mother stopped responding to their lawyers. She owes them $340,000 plus interest. They'll never collect most of it, but it's on record now. She'll have liens and garnishments following her for the rest of her life. My grandmother called me after the judgment came through. She said my mother had a breakdown in her apartment. Wouldn't stop crying, wouldn't eat. My aunt had to take her to the emergency room because her blood pressure spiked so high they thought she might have a stroke. I asked grandmother if my mother ever admitted what she did was wrong. Long silence. Then grandmother said she keeps saying she just needed help and you abandoned her when she needed you most. That's what my mother took from all of this. Not that she committed fraud. Not that she destroyed my business and stole $200,000. But that I abandoned her by reporting it. My brother hasn't spoken to me in 3 months. Last message he sent said I hope you're happy now that you've destroyed mom's life. You got your revenge. I didn't respond. There's nothing left to say to him. My business is doing okay. Not great, but stable. I'm still rebuilding clients, still explaining gaps in my work history when people ask. But I have steady income now and I'm not drowning in someone else's debt. That counts for something. The restraining order expires in 7 months. My lawyer asked if I want to renew it. I said I'd think about it. Honestly, I don't know if I need to. My mother is beaten down enough that I don't think she'll come after me again. She knows I won't back down. My aunt sent me a Facebook message last week. Long thing about family and forgiveness and how my mother is suffering. She said your mother made mistakes but she's still your mother. She gave you life. Doesn't that count for anything? I blocked her. I'm done explaining myself to people who will never understand that giving birth to someone doesn't entitle you to steal from them. My grandmother is the only family member I still talk to. She calls once a week to check on me. Never pressures me to reconcile, never makes excuses for my mother. Just asks how I'm doing, if my business is growing, if I'm taking care of myself. Last time we talked she said I failed your mother somehow. I raised her to be better than this. I told her it's not her fault. Some people just believe they're entitled to things that don't belong to them. Rick is completely gone. Heard through grandmother that he moved to another state. My mother tried calling him a few times but his number was disconnected. She genuinely thought he loved her. Didn't realize he was only around because she was paying off his debts with stolen money. The probation officer contacted me last month. Asked if my mother had attempted contact in violation of the restraining order. I said no. She said my mother has been compliant with probation so far but hasn't made a single payment toward restitution. I said that's between her and the court. I'm seeing a new therapist now. The old one retired. This new one asked me if I feel guilty about what happened to my mother. I said yes and no. Yes, because she's my mother and watching someone's life fall apart is hard even when they deserve it. No, because I didn't do this to her. She did it to herself. The therapist asked what I would say to my mother if I could say anything without consequences. I thought about it for a long time. Finally I said I would tell her that I loved her and I would have helped her if she just asked. But she didn't ask. She stole. And then she blamed me for the consequences. I don't think I'll ever talk to my mother again. Not because of the restraining order or the lawsuits or the probation. But because she's never going to understand what she did wrong. In her mind, she's the victim here. Her daughter betrayed her, the system failed her, everyone turned on her. The fraud was just her trying to survive. I can't have a relationship with someone who sees themselves as the victim of crimes they committed. My business hit a milestone last week. Signed a contract worth more than I made in my first year of operation. It's not the success I would have had if my mother hadn't destroyed everything, but it's something I built entirely on my own this time. Nobody can take it from me because nobody else has access to it. Sometimes I think about what my life would look like if I'd never reported the fraud. If I'd just quietly taken on the debt, made payments, pretended everything was fine. I'd probably still have a relationship with my family. My mother wouldn't have a criminal record. My brother wouldn't hate me. But I'd also be drowning in $200,000 of debt I didn't agree to. My business would be destroyed anyway, just slower. And my mother would have learned that she can do whatever she wants to me without consequences. So I guess I made the right choice. It just doesn't feel like winning. My grandmother asked me last week if I think I'll ever forgive my mother. I said I don't know. Forgiveness feels like something I'm supposed to do but I don't know what it would look like. My mother hasn't apologized. She hasn't acknowledged what she did. She just wants everything to go back to normal as if none of this happened. I can't forgive someone who isn't sorry. The restraining order ends in 7 months. The probation lasts 5 years. The civil judgment is permanent. My mother will be dealing with consequences of her fraud for the rest of her life. And I'll be dealing with the consequences of reporting it for the rest of mine. But at least when I look at myself in the mirror, I know I didn't lie. I didn't cover up a crime. I didn't let someone steal from me just because we share DNA. That has to be worth something. My family still thinks I'm a monster. My mother still thinks she's the victim. And I'm just trying to rebuild a life from the wreckage of what she destroyed. I don't regret reporting the fraud. But I do regret that it was necessary. I regret that my mother chose to steal instead of asking for help. I regret that my family chose to defend a criminal instead of supporting the person she victimized. Mostly I regret that I ever believed family was supposed to mean something more than shared genetics and convenient access to fraud.